Halito, and welcome to Native Choctalk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our native ancestors' stories and history alive while also sharing with you our native cultures, traditions, and more. I'm RachaelYoungman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And stay tuned for the end of each episode where we'll talk about some great ways to support Native causes and or Native-owned businesses. Let's get started. I crawled into the dwelling on my hands and knees, following the women in front of me who were also doing the same. We entered the left side of the circular lodge, making our way around to the opposite side. Following our settling in, the men did the same. Soon the fabric doors were lowered over the opening, and we were surrounded by pitch darkness in a sweat lodge in Madill, Oklahoma. Scalding hot rocks were placed in the center of the dirt floor. Water was poured onto the rocks, instigating a heavy steam that permeated throughout, increasing our heart rates and causing a profuse sweat. We came for a cleansing of our bodies, minds, and souls, the rejuvenation of our spirits, and a deeper connection with our Creator. This was a Christian-based event, so we each prayed and concentrated on those prayers, needs, and requests throughout the evening. I'll admit that for myself, I was in a constant battle with my mind. I'm breathing heavy. I can't breathe. The sweat is dripping down every part of my body. I want a cold shower or maybe jump in a pool, like an icy cold pool. Wait, that's not what this is about. Let go of your mind, Rachel. Start praying again. And then inevitably a solemn and serene calm would overcome my yapping mind, and I would remember why I was there. The drumming was especially a great contributor to the calming and focus of my mind. I couldn't help but think of our ancestors doing the same spiritual ceremony. The cleansing and healing of their bodies, the bonding and strengthening of their relationships amongst all that were present. And that's something I wasn't expecting would come from all of this, was that bond that would develop amongst us. This was my first time joining others in the Sweat Lodge, where I was invited by Weylin Thompson and his wife Sharon, both Choctaws. Weylin has graciously agreed to visit with me and you, listeners, today. Weylin, halito chimachukma.
Amachukma Yakoki.
Yakoki. Would you like to start us off with some drumming? We'd love to hear that and start this thing off right.
Yes, I will. I'm going to start this song. It's called I Am Healed. The words to this song is, I am a warrior of future generations. I will do great acts of valor. I am healed. I am loved by the Creator. I am a warrior of past generations. And it's a song I wrote for the Men's Recovery Center in Tallahassee for their graduation ceremony. So these words, when they speak it and they sing it, it brings all those words into fruition, into life, and that they will be men of great valor and they will do great acts in their life. And so, as we know, words have power. And
true.
So here we go.
Thank you.
Cookie.
Amen. Yeah, cookie. Beautiful. I love the meaning behind that as well. And we're going to talk about what you do there at that recovery program. So, more on that. And also, before we get started on talking about the sweat lodge, let's hear a bit about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Um, I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I moved when I was 8 into the foster care system to Hominy, Oklahoma, which is Osage County. Um,
Hmm.
and I finished school there until I graduated.
What was it like going through the foster system?
Well, it was strange
Hmm.
because my grandma was raising five of us, brothers and sisters. I'm the youngest of five, and she had rheumatoid arthritis, and my parents were addicts. They were addicted to huffing paint, and they lived on the streets of Tulsa. So my grandma took us all in, all five of us, and like I said,
Wow.
she had rheumatoid arthritis and couldn't work, and so we were on food stamps, and we lived very poor, but being young, I didn't understand the word poor. I knew I was loved by my grandma,
Right.
and when somebody told the state that we wasn't uh, eating right and this and that, and which was true. We didn't have a lot of food. I mean, food stamps back then wasn't like it is today. It wasn't, you know. I think a family of five probably gets, considerably amount of more money than back
Oh,
then.
absolutely. Sure.
And so, going from a Tulsa, from an urban setting, and not a great neighborhood, Northside Tulsa was not a great neighborhood where I grew up at, and so going from there to Hominy, Oklahoma, which is a country town, well, it's small, as I'll say. Um, there's only like one stop sign, like
Right.
there's only one four way,
I
and
think you
so
and I talked about that too, that, on your Facebook, it says you're from Hominy. And I love all the paintings, the murals that are on the buildings and that kind of thing. I love small towns. It's a beautiful part of Oklahoma. If anyone's in that area, look up Hominy, Oklahoma, drive through it and say hello to the murals there, Native American murals. So go ahead. So then you were in the foster system and went to Hominy.
right, and so it was just a different world of city, and then going to a country, which I liked it. Going to a smaller school, and more people.
Yeah.
It's a closer knit community,
Yeah.
and like I said, it's Osage County, and there's lots of Osage Indians there, natives, and so that I made a lot of friends at a young age with my brothers, my Osage brothers. Wajaji is how they say it. Um, and so I got to see their culture and their side of things,
Yeah.
even though I was an outsider as far as from a different tribe, and I didn't have my parents. My foster parents were Caucasian
I was going to
and
say, yeah. So non-native.
non-native, and they actually wouldn't let me practice any culture, and so
Oh. Do you know why? Was it just they didn't understand it, or was it for religious reasons, or
I'm not sure exactly. They never told me, and I'd never asked.
yeah.
Uh, it was we didn't have a good relationship, and so
Okay.
it wasn't close knit, or we wasn't a close family, and so unfortunately back then, I think, and it probably even today, a lot of foster parents took foster kids in for money,
Yeah.
and so I feel like that happened for us, and as far as the culture thing, I'm not sure, but it was very it was very hard growing up like that.
I bet it was. Did you get to still see your grandmother?
No, they we,
Oh,
they didn't let us have contact, and
wow.
uh, just a very controlling environment. Um, I would almost say like the boarding schools situation. It was very strict, very
Mm.
uh, almost like military style of living. We had
Mm.
chore lists every day, and so not just some days. It was every day, and so
Wow.
and we had to have good grades and straight A's, and we did homework during the summertime even, and all of that. Very very strict.
Were your siblings there with you at least?
My brother and my sister.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
Were the others just older or did they go to a different house?
yeah, they was older.
Okay. And
Hmm.
then, what happened when you aged out of the foster care system?
Um, I went wild. I turned 18 and
Kind of understandable.
I was sheltered, and so I just started having fun, I guess. I started drinking at a pretty early age, and
Yeah,
um, just that kind of lifestyle. Unfortunately,
sure.
um, kind of went down the wrong path for some years, and because I didn't know, I felt like it was almost like I felt like I got out of prison
Hmm.
and just wanted to be free. I didn't have someone always
Yeah,
controlling my behavior, and so and I went down a drinking path of just because it made me feel good, it made me feel better than um, I used to. It was just a feeling, and then it got turned into kind of an addiction. But I went ahead and finished school, and I played football from second grade till I graduated high school.
nice. What position did you play?
I played linebacker,
I
tailback,
was gonna say, I bet you were a linebacker.
and um, mainly linebacker and tailback.
Yeah.
And so after that, I had a little rough bout of drinking and stuff. Got in trouble a little bit, county jail stuff,
Okay.
and uh, ended up joining the Navy uh, around 19 years old. And it wasn't my service was. I wasn't the greatest military person, but like I said, I still had this trauma I was dealing with from my
Yeah.
childhood, and I took it with me to my service,
Those
and drinking and
demons
the
from
drinking and the partying, and
yeah.
but I was trying to do the right thing, and so but I'm glad I went, and I'm glad all those things happened, and um, yeah, so
We're gonna hear a little bit more too about your continued story and how you're turning it around for good. I know you work for Choctaw Nation today. What are you doing for Choctaw Nation?
I am a peer recovery support specialist through their behavioral health. Um, it is a grant, tribal opioid response grant, and so our target is Choctaw people with meth or opioid addiction um, and recovery. And so, um, but we try to help everyone, and so
It's great.
that's what I do today, as far as my job.
In fact, you just came from a men's meeting, correct?
Yes, we just got finished with drum circle at the Men's Recovery Center here in Tallahena, and there was 7 men today, and
Fantastic.
so it's a recovery group, and they get to learn a song in Choctaw and drum, and it's very empowering for them uh, to learn these things. And we always have a we have a recovery topic we go over. So it is a full length group session, uh,
Yeah.
full hour group, sometimes longer. And so today's topic was restoration.
Hmm.
So it was really good. And so
Well, I'd like to give a shout out to the group that you run and the hard work that people are putting in. I mean, if anyone knows how hard that is, you're one of those people that gets it. I love that you've turned your life into something that now helps other people. That's a big deal. And I used to actually work for a recovery center for teens. They would be in our center for a year. And it is interesting getting through those walls that come up when you've been through so much in your life, and then you've made those decisions to turn to substances, and then to get to the point where you realize this is a safe place for me to be me and to share all the stuff, the good, the bad, the ugly. So kudos to anyone who's putting themselves out there, joining this program. And in a minute, I'd love to hear how folks can get in touch with you, to Choctaws that are maybe seeking some support and all that. So, but I also want to talk about the good things you're doing with your sweat lodge, which I feel is part of that healing process too for so many people, whether it's addiction or um, bodily pain, or just wanting to connect with others in a way that's spiritual and cleansing. So what's the name of your sweat lodge group?
it's called Chihuahua's Warrior Path.
Awesome. And this group is a ministry basically, which is fantastic. Tell about the good things the sweat lodge brings to people who join in.
Well, we're going on about 3 years of the Sweat Lodge ministry. Um, we call it a ministry because it's Christ based faith. Um, and So 3 years, it was prior to COVID, is when I decided to, and when I was getting into my sobriety. Um, so when I got into my sobriety, I really wanted to build this lodge. And so I knew the Choctaw people have in their history sweat lodges going back 1,000 years ago, and I wanted to reach out to our Choctaw archaeologist, um, Dr. Thompson,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wanted to make sure that it was correct, and I wanted to make sure pick his brain a little bit on what kind of structure they used and things like that, and yeah, and so
I feel
I,
like, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel like all roads lead back to Dr. Ian Thompson. He's
A
so
lot of them.
knowledgeable. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. I feel like I could go to him for any topic. So
Yes.
I've only experienced the sweat lodge one time. I know I'm way behind the times compared to my native friends. I have so many questions, and I probably should have asked them before I started the sweat lodge. You opened it up and you said, "Do you have questions? How can I help you understand it?" And I was like, "I think I just need to delve in first." And so I kind of did it backwards. But let's start with the structure of the sweat lodge itself. Is there a specific placement of the door as far as east, west, south, and north goes?
Well, ours is faces the east. The door faces the east, which is faces the sun rises in the east. The sun represents life, so that's one reason that we use the east.
Ah, gotcha. And then there's a frame, I believe, an outer and inner frame, correct? And what's that
The
frame made of?
uh, we use willow saplings,
Okay.
um, and you know the area I live in is by around Fort Washita,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is where they brought our ancestors from the trail on that to that fort.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so I live very close around that area, and so the area that we're in has a lot of history, even in it. You know, it's like no coincidence that the saplings that I use is from the area that our ancestors were brought,
That's
and
cool.
you can almost you can feel that. uh,
Yeah.
when we sweat. And also there was other tribes around in the area I live in, Caddo, uh, I think Kiowa, and other tribes that already lived in that area
Mm-hmm.
uh, pre-colonization, and so it's very powerful there. I mean, we've experienced some powerful things
Oh, for sure.
there, and so
It's beautiful there too. That area is
yes,
really pretty. So
yeah.
when it comes to those frames, the willow and all that, how do you shape them? Are you wetting them first, or how does that work?
No, the reason we use willow is because they're real bendable, uh, so they're real pliable,
Mm-hmm.
and so when we bend it into shape, which you want it 4 feet high, uh, the top of your lodge,
Mm-hmm.
and about ours is about 12 feet in circumference, and so
Okay.
they just bend, and you tie them off. We use sinew to tie them off, and yeah, the reason we use willow is because they're real bendable, and it's also a metaphor for life. Uh, that the willow's tough and they can survive the winds, they can
Wow.
survive the rain, they can survive the snow, uh, and they don't die, they don't crack. Um, as long as you take care of them, they survive all those things. That so it's also a metaphor for in our life. We should be like the willow to because there's going to be storms in our life. There's going to be winters in our life. There's going to be rain, and so
Mm,
um, so it's a
very
metaphor
good.
for life too.
Very nice. And so when I was out at your sweat lodge, it was still fairly new. I'm sure you're really proud of the hard work you put into it. How long did it take you to build it?
Oh, I want to say 4 or 5 days.
Okay. Yeah, and then so we know that there's the willow that's part of the framing. What other materials are part of the structure? There's that really thick wool blanketing, right? What else?
We use blankets and tarps.
Yeah.
So it's wool blankets and canvas tarps. Our ancestors would have used animal skins
Mm.
and that type of thing. But as you know, we don't really hunt like that anymore. And to have hides
Yeah, we don't
uh,
have hides laying around as plentiful as we used to.
and so the next best thing is wool blankets and canvas. Also because it's a breathable material.
Oh, okay.
So you want it hot, you want it steam in there, but you also want it to breathe when you're not suffocating people.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's,
Well, and speaking about hot, tell us about the fire and the
fire.
rocks and, how you treat the rocks and the fire and the steam and all of that stuff.
Well, we use 28 rocks, grandfathers, um, for each ceremony, and we usually use what we've been using is river rocks, Colorado River rock, and we have a source for that.
Oh, okay.
Um, and recently we've got some igneous lava rocks, which heats pretty good. And
Oh, I bet. And are
uh,
they lighter than the river rock?
uh, not really,
Mm,
not really.
yeah.
They're about the same, but they hold more heat.
Yeah.
Um, and so, but the river they hold heat too. I mean, don't get me wrong, the river rocks you they hold a lot of heat, and like I said, we use 28 of them, um, 7 per round, and we heat them for about 2 hours, so they're nice and hot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing I time. I don't time the ceremony, but I do know when it's 2 hours. The rocks has been in the fire for 2 hours, and then we could begin. the ceremony, and that's the only thing at the time. The rest of the time is what we call spirit time, and that's why I always tell people, we're not in a hurry. Just let the spirit flow, and
Yeah.
uh, I always let people know it might be 3 to 4 to 5 hours before we're done.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah. Absolutely. And we were all wearing comfortable and modest clothing, and that's typical, correct?
yes, it's very typical in a modern era. I mean, our ancestors wouldn't have worn clothes, um, but we live in a modern era, so what do
Yeah,
you know?
I just wouldn't have been able to concentrate, I think, even though it was dark in there if we all had our clothes off.
Right, but uh, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
just because as much as you're sweating, you want it to be comfortable.
right.
You really want the sweat to come out of your pores.
Right. And as I mentioned, we crawled in there. You go around, and this is for folks who have never done a sweat. There are many Native Americans out there who have never done one. And then there are some just non-natives who are interested in how it all works, and from the spiritual sense, as well as all those little details, like crawling around in there. You're sitting there, sometimes you're laying down. So it's a matter of making sure that you're comfortable. Um, so yeah, so tell us about the drumming and the song that goes on inside the lodge.
Um, I wrote all the songs that I sing in the lodges. My lodge I wrote. They're in Choctaw. Uh, each round is a different prayer round. We typically do 4 rounds. Sometimes we do 5 rounds for a warrior round. Uh, and so, but typically, I'll begin each round with a song. Um, like one of the songs I can say is "Cleanse My Spirit,"
Mm,
which is talking about cleansing my mind, my body, my spirit. Um, so they're all songs that's related to spiritual songs. Uh,
yeah.
that all the songs I try to write that make reference to Chihuahua, our creator, uh, to ourselves and to our ancestors, to
Yeah.
our brothers and sisters. And so all my songs I try to keep in that way,
Hmm.
honoring uh, the creator, our ancestors, and our brothers and sisters that are here now. And
Yeah.
and our elders, and really our first speakers, Dora Wixon and Chaplain Olin Williams. They really helped me in as far as the Choctaw language. Uh, I didn't grow up speaking fluently, as you know. I grew up in a foster home.
You probably spoke more Osage than you did Choctaw.
Yes, I spoke more Wajage, and
Hmm.
so I wanted to make sure it was real correct and I was pronouncing the words right. And so, and honor is a big thing for me as far as the language and getting it
Yes,
right. And so, of course, I went to them
absolutely.
with respect and say, I told them what I was doing and what it's about. And
Yeah.
of course, everyone has questions, and of course, I answer them. But can I tell you about the first time I went to the sweat lodge?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Um, so I was 25. I ended up in a maximum prison at 25 years old,
Okay.
um, with some hardened criminals. I had a 3 year sentence.
Okay.
It wasn't a very hard sentence, but I got in trouble at the prison I was at, so they shipped me to a maximum unit.
Ah,
Um, um, so when the Native brothers get in trouble in prison, they ship them. They just ship you. They're like, y'all's a problem, and that's just how they treat us. And so ended up in a maximum prison. Uh, they have what's called a Native American call out. So that means this is your group of your Native brothers that's going to the sweat. They call it a call out.
Oh,
And so,
really? At the
yeah,
prison?
yes.
Wow,
And so
that's
this
cool.
prison, they allowed us to have a sweat lodge. Matter of fact, they have to because it's the
Right.
law.
And is
The
this, sorry to interrupt, but is that federal prison? Where was it? What state?
state prison, Lawrence, not Lawrence, Lansing, Kansas,
Okay.
and so so I'm here. We have a big group of people. We have probably 100 brothers
Wow.
going to the sweat,
Yeah.
and so we're deep. And
Yeah.
I just got there pretty new, and like I said, I didn't grow up culturally, yeah, because I wasn't allowed to. No, I seen the Osage dances and the Osage singers and all of that, because I
Right.
grew up with them and around them. But once we was going to the sweat, I got in the sweat lodge and seen what they were doing, and I was like, I was like, what? I didn't know what to expect. Like, to be honest, I was a little scared because I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
I, I
Yeah.
didn't
It's
know.
a little intimidating when you haven't grown up with it and are always around it.
And so we get inside, and everybody's, everybody talks a little bit before the rocks come in,
Yeah.
and kind of fellowship and whatnot. And I remember this one guy, the water pourer that was leading the ceremony. He was like, I could just die in here and I'll be all right. And I was like, what? I was thinking, die in here, you know?
You're like, is
Well,
there a possibility we're going to die in here?
yeah. So I was just like, wow. That statement to me is like stuck to me because I can still remember it. I can still,
Yeah.
but I didn't know at the time what he meant. Like I do now. I know what he meant.
Yeah.
But getting in there and then they start bringing the rocks in and we start having a sweat. Uh, Keep in mind, I'm in a maximum security prison. Most people are doing 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years.
Right.
I was doing a little old 3 year sentence. And, uh, I never been in trouble until this point. Not
Yeah.
really. County jail stuff, public intox. Uh, but anyway, so we're in here sweating, and I hear all these prayers going on. And keep in mind, these guys are they're gangsters. They're criminals. They're gangsters. They're tatted up from head to toe.
Right.
They're doing some of them never getting out. Some of them doing triple life sentences, 80
Wow.
years, 60 years. But the presence of God was in there. These
Yeah.
grown men are pouring their heart out to the Creator
Wow.
and crying and just letting it loose, praying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Wow.
they're speaking their
What a
language.
moment.
Yeah, and singing the song and the languages. And I'm like, whoa. It's the first time I felt connected
Right.
to my culture. I mean,
Right.
honestly, it's a first time I felt connected to a native culture. Um, and that's when it really spoke to me in my spirit
Wow.
with the sweat. So it was there seeing these grown criminals, gangsters, uh, really talking to God, really praying to God, and some of them crying, uh,
Wow.
just in a place of solidarity to the Creator and honor and respect. There was no cussing there. There was no acting a certain way there, and so I was like, wow. I was
Wow.
like, wow, this, they're respecting this to the utmost,
Right.
and so that really got my attention. Um, and like I said, it really got my blood from then on. I didn't know later on that I would be doing it on my own.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I was worthy enough,
Hmm.
and so
Wait, you mean like to do a sweat outside of this gathering? You didn't feel like you could? Is that what you mean?
I didn't feel like I could do one, have my own, like at my
Right.
house.
Like you do now. Wow. What a
Yeah,
journey, right? You've been on such a journey.
yeah. And so that was the first experience with the sweat lodge. And
Yeah. Do you feel like, all these, a lot of times in those federal prisons, there is fighting amongst, all the different people of different cultures, ethnicities, and all that.
well,
Do you feel like
this was state prison.
state
Um,
prison? Okay, sorry. Do you feel like when y'all did the sweat and that kind of thing, like all of that just dropped away? It was only about the mission
yeah,
that you were there for?
yeah, because there's pettiness and there's politics in prison, just like anywhere else. Um, but yeah, I do feel like that. I feel like God was at the center of this ceremony, and that was all that mattered at that
Yeah,
point. And the connection with the ancestors and the language and
right.
that connection
Yeah,
spoke volumes to me.
that's amazing. What a story. Hmm. Wow. So how to top that? um, so thanks for sharing that with us. I feel like there's so much more to unwrap about your story. And listeners, by the way, this is the first time I'm hearing a lot of Weylin's story as well. I know that there were you were in the foster system, and that led to a lot of things in your future. But I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by the end of this today. So, all right. So the structure of the sweat that's going on. And again, this whole thing is a very spiritual thing. It's not all about I'm talking about the facts and data about how to build a sweat lodge and all that, but there is so much more to that, of course. And we'll get to that. But on one of our breaks, when we were, between phases, one of the ladies told me at the sweat that she used to do sweats in Arizona in the summer with the Navajo. And I seriously don't know how she did that in that heat. I mean, we were in the Oklahoma heat, which was pretty bearable, even though it was really hot. But how does anyone do that in Arizona? I don't even know. So anyway, now after the break, the steam and the heat intensifies, correct? Doesn't it get hotter after each phase?
Yes, because we bring in we'll start out with 7 rocks, and then we bring 7 more, and then so that's 14, and then 21, then 28. So it's a gradual heat. I will say the third round is the hottest to me. The third round
The
is the
third more than the fourth?
yes,
Yeah,
because you kind of get used to it. Or I do. I get used to it at the end of the third round. Sometimes
I agree.
it's like more than. Sometimes I'm like, I'll tell you what. I mean, I'm leading the sweat, so I know people
Yeah.
are looking up to me, and so I'm like,
I know you're like,
yeah,
I can't
I'm
pass out.
pushing through. Yeah, and so I'll tell you one of the recent sweat that was 3 hours long. Um, we did one for the MMIW Choctaw chapter.
Yes, Carissa, right? Carissa Hodge.
Yes,
Shout out to
yes.
Carissa. She leads the MMI W Chahta Foundation. Sorry, Chahta group. Go ahead, please.
And so we did a fire talking circle. We did after that we did a sweat lodge, and of course we had food. Um, but during this, after the talking circle, which there was like 33 people there at this point.
Wow.
So it
Did
was
you
a
fit
whole
33 inside the lodge?
no, no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
about 12.
Okay.
And so, but there was 33 people all together that came to the event, and including teenagers and kids.
It's
And
great.
but there was so after the talking circle, I said, whoever we're getting ready to go in the lodge, whoever is ready to go in the lodge, we're going in about 15 minutes. So, um, and there was about 6 or 7 teenagers in there. Uh, I don't know, 14 and up, uh,
Yeah.
teenagers, and it was a 3 hour sweat, 3 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and so that is the longest one we've had so far.
Oh,
And the
wow.
only reason I know because I do look at I do see what time it is when I get
Yeah.
back to my house and it's time to eat.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
time it, but I do look at the time to be
Yeah.
so it's not really really late. But anyway, 3 hours long, and to have all of these teenagers in there praying and crying and just pouring their
Wow.
heart out. Um, and I know some of them never prayed before, and to hear that what they were saying and praying about, and because we were the topic was generational curses, breaking those generational curses,
Amen. Right.
and with drugs and alcohol
Hmm.
and abuse being in people's families, and the awareness of MMIW. Um, it was just it, it was it was amazing how strong it was,
Wow.
and because that's not it's not easy. A lot of them was first timers, and
Yeah.
um, so it spoke volumes to me. I was just knowing that God is the center of this place, the Creator, as long as with honoring our ancestors in the language and the respect factor has traveled with me through I'm 44 now. I had a birthday Saturday, and so
Happy birthday.
thank you. And so after all these years, I still remember that, and so I remember that. So when there's young people around, I try to be the same way. The honor, the respect, the value of where
Mm,
you're at on these grounds,
absolutely.
um, with the Creator, and respect for our ancestors. And so I know if it stuck with me in those years, we plant those seeds. Like I said, some people don't know how to pray, and I think in some of the lodges they get in here, and I've been praying for many years, and so uh, maybe we can be that example of their spiritual life, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, for sure.
and so
Well, and I,
it's
I imagine you said that there's some teens in there that was their first time, correct?
yes, yes,
I mean, like I said, one of the biggest things I loved was the bonding experience out of it too, to know that we were all in there praying together, that the heat was supposed to be, in my head, it was kind of like, it's a way of just giving yourself up, of going, I'm trusting that I'm here among people who care about me and love me, and that we're praying to the Creator, and we're, concentrating on good things together. It's just, I mean, it gives me goosebumps even now. It's just such an interesting thought that when they're together, and when you're a teenager and you're needing that bond more than you think you even do, I can see why it was such an emotional time for them. I just can't say how grateful I am that you're providing those opportunities to our Choctaw and native and non-native folks to be able to have that opportunity. Not everybody gets that. So thank you. Something you reminded me ahead of time before we started the sweat was to stay hydrated the night before and the morning of the sweat. And I can see now why that's extremely important. Oh my goodness. But I should take a moment to point out that putting together and hosting a sweat lodge is a very important responsibility. It can be dangerous if done incorrectly. So please don't try this at home, folks, unless you've been trained to do so and have gone to elders or to other experts, as Weylin did with Dr. Ian Thompson, trying to make sure that you have the correct training to get that started. So would you give us an overview from start to finish as to what the experience is like for folks who have never done this before?
um, we usually start with a talking circle, so we get to know each other first. I have a talking stick, or we use an eagle feather, one or the other, and so we go around the room, and I always go first because, like I said, I always try to be the example for people.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to volunteer somebody that's never
Right. They
done
just
this.
shrink down into their chair.
And so I go first. I'm Weylin Thompson. I work for Choctaw Nation. I'm Choctaw, Mississippi Choctaw. I'm from Hominy, Oklahoma. Um, things like that. Um, just to break the ice and get to know each other. This is before we go in, and so pass the feather or the talking stick to the next person, and then they'll go on, and they usually say why they're here. They usually talk about why they're here. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, um, a lot of the people that come, they're Christian and they're Choctaw,
Mm-hmm.
but they also love the fact that we could do something our ancestors did and partake in, like a sweat lodge. Um, a lot of our members they go to church already, and they love their church, but they want another experience like sweat lodge, just like I do. I go to a regular church, but I also sweat, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my belief, and we get a lot of people like that, and they said, they feel like they couldn't incorporate both because they feel like they're doing something wrong, like
Right.
it's not
Yeah.
godly or it's
Yeah.
ungodly to go to a sweat when that's furthest from the case, because the Creator God put the water, the air, the earth, the fire, all the elements we use for the sweat for the sweat on the earth. And so
Mm-hmm.
and so what better way than to pray uh, and sing songs in your language and speak from the heart and pray from the heart with like-minded people, and and it touches your mind, your body, and your soul
Mm-hmm.
all at once. It's not just one factor of listening to somebody preach
Right.
and hearing
Right.
it. It's more than that. It's connecting physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What
Yes.
we call holistic healing, and because the heat part pulls impurities out of you. The spiritual part with God the Creator, the emotional part, because something's gonna be pressing on your heart. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's different for other people. There's different reasons. Some of people maybe addicts or lost loved ones, or going through a divorce or whatever it may be, and so that's always different for individuals. Um,
Right.
and so and the mental is focusing on um, the Creator, even though you're hot, even though you might want to get out, and even
Right.
though you might be uncomfortable, even. So focusing on the Creator is the mental aspect. You got to push all the other stuff
So true.
away,
So
and
true.
focus while you're there. And so um, that's that's the reason.
Yep. So yeah, so we start with that talking circle. You have a talking stick or feather, and then you guys have warmed up the sweat lodge. It sounds like ahead of time. Those are the things I didn't see when I was there. And then everyone comes in and
Yes,
goes around.
we smudge everybody before we go in. Uh, and then we go in. We always allow the women in first, um, to the all the way to the right, and then the men after them. Or there's different occasions for different sweats. It could be an
Mm,
all men sweat. It could be a veteran sweat. It could be a sobriety sweat. It could be
yeah.
there's different occasions for whatever, but yeah, it could be co-ed, um, all those different types of sweat. So we don't make it one thing like, oh, it has to be men or it has to be co-ed. It could be anything. It can be
Yeah.
all women, um, and so there's different needs for people have in this day and age.
Yeah. In older times, were women allowed to do the sweats as well?
They did it by themselves, mainly.
Yeah.
Um, or it started as a warrior society. Men that came back from a hunt,
Mm.
or men that were going hunting, or men that came back from stickball or going to play stickball. There's a battle back then, was it?
Yeah, right.
You might not come back, and that
Yeah.
was that was one of the main reasons people purified, because you might not live, you might be going sweat for a battle, and you might not come back.
Yeah.
Or so these things were really putting the forethought of our ancestors' brain was, death was real, and you've seen it more.
Mhm.
You've seen it more because you hunted your food, so you've seen death all the time.
Right.
Um, and so it was more at the forethought of their spiritual
Yeah.
life. And so they always thank the animals, thank the Creator uh, for giving its life. And so,
Indeed. Indeed. So I was really glad when I had that opportunity to do the sweat with you and Sharon and the other fabulous people that I met that evening. There were a lot of people there from Choctaw Nation headquarters that were there, that work for the tribe. And I talked about how my mind really got in the way when I was doing the sweat. Do you hear that a lot? And is that half the battle sometimes for newbies like me? Does it happen even with seasoned sweaters?
um, I think it does, because, like I said, it's hot,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes that heat can make you want to get out.
Yeah, right,
And I always tell people not to focus. Don't focus on the heat. Focus on your spirit.
right.
But I think it does happen a lot. It's just something you have to overcome, and it's like life. You
Yeah,
know, there's things that you have to overcome in situations, and it's not supposed to be comfortable.
right.
It is a suffering, and the greatest, uh, like our ancestors, the greatest form of worship is suffering.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it definitely is a mental battle, but it sounds like I was thinking at the time, I'm not good at this because of my mental battles that I was having, but it sounds like that actually is part of the process, which is surprising to me now. So I feel better about the fact that I was so much in my head and all that. One of the gals there, the same one that said that she would do sweats in Arizona in the summer, she was saying that, oh, sometimes if it gets too much, just lay down flat on the ground because you'll be a little bit below some of the steam, and that would help. And then I'd come back up for, I'd have some air down there, and then I'd come back up and sit upright for a little bit. But I loved that everyone could kind of be at their own pace. So thank you for being patient with me as a newbie at the time, and for helping us all understand it. But some general facts about sweat lodges. The lodge temperature can get up to 120 degrees, it also means to kill, or means to flush out bacteria and viruses. So in addition, adrenaline and cortisol responses can be present, which can calm the muscle aches and cramps, and the steam can alleviate arthritis and skin disorders. So other benefits include serotonin and endorphin hormone responses, which initiates a feeling of euphoria, relieving stress. So in case you're wondering, listeners, not every tribe practiced the spiritual ceremony of the sweat lodge. You typically hear of Plains tribes doing the sweat lodges, but believe it or not, the Choctaws also practice this tradition, as Weylin said. According to ChoctawSchool.com, the sweat lodge has been a part of Choctaw traditional culture for a very long time. Archaeologists working at the Belafonte site in northeastern Alabama, not too far from Choctaw County, uncovered the remains of a sweat lodge that dates back almost 1,000 years. In all likelihood, the use of the sweat lodge in the region dates back quite a bit earlier than that. From oral history and written descriptions, we know that Choctaws in the past conducted sweats for several specific reasons. It was common for fatigued hunters and warriors upon returning home to do a sweat in order to relax their bodies and regain their strength. Choctaw doctors also used sweats to relieve patients with colds and a wide variety of aches and pains. From the best information we have, it appears that the forms of sweat lodges differed in different Choctaw communities, likely as a result of the available materials and personal preferences. It is probably no coincidence that the Sweat Lodge has been known by several different Choctaw names, including anuka, meaning the inside, and alaksha, meaning a place of sweating. The process of using heat on the body itself is sometimes referred to as shila, which is to bake. So, do you open your sweat lodge to anyone, native, non-native, Choctaw, other tribes, etc.?
My ours is open up to whoever wants to participate. Um, so it's open for everyone. Um,
Nice. Thank you for that. And if someone wants to join, how do they go about doing so?
um, I have my Facebook page, uh, which is just my name, Weylin
Yeah.
Thompson. Or do have an email address too. Um, W.T. Thompson at cnhsa.com.
Okay.
They can feel free to email me um, if they want more information. Um, yeah.
That's great. Thank you for that. And I'll be sure to add your Facebook handle onto my Native Chalk Talk Facebook page so that people can easily find that information. I do ask that our listeners be respectful of Weylin's time. Make sure that you're asking him questions that only pertain to the Sweat Lodge or to the recovery groups that he's talking about. And just be respectful of his time, if you will. So something I'm hearing more and more is the healing that can come to those who are seeking recovery from addiction or who are currently in recovery. And I think that's such a beautiful thing to be able to use those sweat lodges in that way. So now that you are giving back to others in a way that really takes your own story and your own understanding of what it's like to go through addiction, to even have been in prison here and there. Tell us about what you're doing at that Choctaw Nation Recovery Drum Circle group.
So we go to the Men's and Women's Recovery Center in Tallahena. We go to the Juvenile Detention Center in Tallahena.
Oh,
Um,
wow. I didn't know that.
yes, we go to the Stigler Jail in Stigler. That's where our Choctaw people are housed in that jail, or one of the places, and we bring it to them there at the jail. Bring the drum and the songs to all these places, and we go to the. We have one once a month at the Durant headquarters on the third floor rotunda. That's where the big circle area is. That has good acoustics, and they can hear us throughout the whole building. um, at least the security has told us that. And we have one in Antlers at the community center, the old community center in Antlers. Sometimes a new one if the old one's unavailable.
Yeah,
And future wise, probably going to one of the prisons here in the near future, and taking it there. Um, we go to a sober living house in Ardmore. Uh, it's a ladies' sober living house in Ardmore for our Choctaw people there, and
great.
and so
Wow, what a
that's what we
ministry.
do. And like I said, the sweat lodge I do on my own time, and but as far as job wise, that's what we're doing. Well, I do a lot of other things, case management and seeing people individually, but that is one of the recovery groups that people are really getting involved in.
Hmm.
They learn the language and they can sing it and they can play the drum. And we always have recovery topics, and it's always we always go in depth with something because I'm a
Yeah,
recovering addict myself from 4 years in recovery now, and I've been in prison, and so the people we connect to are either they're in jail, like I said, the juvenile detention center, they're youth and they're locked up, and so
yeah.
uh, and some of them are foster kids, or and so what better
Wow.
way and to talk to someone that's been through it
Yes.
and has overcome it.
What I like about all of this is like we're taking you where you are. You don't have to be in this perfect place in your life. It's come
Correct.
as you are. We're here to support you. So please, I hope anyone struggling with addiction, with continuing recovery, whatever the case is, please consider reaching out to Weylin. Um, this is a great way for you to connect with not only other folks who are in the same position you're in probably, but also other natives, and to tackle this in maybe a different way than some folks would in the normal world. So that's great. Thanks for all you're doing for others. It's just seriously, it's I've had to fight the tears a couple times through this episode. It's amazing that you've dedicated your life to this. Well, and as you know, I'm all about the family history and stories and preservation. So tell us what you've discovered about your family and ancestors, Weylin.
Um, like I said, I grew up in a foster home, but I really don't know a lot of my family. But I have done my genealogy through the Choctaw Nation,
It's great.
going back to I believe 1897. I want to say
That's pretty far
uh,
back.
uh, all the way up to my mom and dad's mom and dad,
Wow.
and so everybody's from the Choctaw side and the Oklahoma Choctaw side. Um, Everyone in my family is full blooded up into my dad's mom.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So she was Choctaw, but she was not full blooded.
And was she the grandma that was taking care of you?
No, no,
Okay.
no. It was
Okay.
my
So she was
mom.
part.
It was my mom's mom. It
Okay.
was my
Gotcha.
dad's. And so, but my mom's full blood, and um, the rest of my family,
Wow.
for my genealogy, it says full, 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 full.
Wow.
And so,
Yeah.
so
Were there any, as you did that research with Choctaw Nation, were you working with Gwen Takes Horse, by the way?
yes, she's the one.
She's fantastic.
She got it. Yeah, she's great and
Love
funny.
her. And funny. Yes, she is funny. That's just talking to her is just a breath of fresh air.
Yes.
So did y'all discover any interesting stories together or anything like that about some of your relatives?
Um, Not really. I mean, sometimes I have my serious side on, and I was just more. I was really trying to find where my grandma was from. I don't know much
Oh,
about
did you find that out?
They want to say Arizona,
Okay.
I think, and I was like Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah.
Like Choctaw from Arizona.
That's how people
Anyway,
look at me when I say I'm from Anadarko. Like, wait, aren't you supposed to be
so
from Durant? I think so, but I was in Anadarko.
but they don't. My grandma didn't talk about nothing. So and she's passed.
Wow, that's
Uh,
hard.
and so yeah, so
Are your parents still
um,
living today?
my mom is in a nursing home in Tulsa.
Okay.
I just talked to her the other day,
Oh,
and
wow.
we rekindled the relationship
It's great.
a couple years ago.
Sure, that wasn't easy.
No, but I forgave her. You know,
It's great.
the Bible says, "Honor your mother and father." It doesn't say honor them if they was perfect. Honor
True.
them if they raised you. Honor them. It just says honor, and so
Wow.
I
Good
can do
point.
that today. There was a time when I couldn't, but I don't know the generational trauma she went through. No, she grew up in the boarding
Right.
school era, and I know her sister was murdered in Tulsa back in the early '80s. My aunt, and
Oh,
so which was unsolved.
oh,
That's why I have a passion to help with the MMIW chahta
that's great.
chapter, Missing Indigenous Women group, and so that's one thing that speaks to my heart.
Yeah.
If I can help, then I'm going to help. And I think we've had pretty good turnouts and stuff. And Yeah,
Yeah,
there's more to do, and I still thank God, the Creator, Jehovah, has given me these visions. It's not for me. I'm not smart
hmm
enough, but
same.
God keeps giving me the vision to implement new ideas and these things. And I know some people is probably going to say, "Well, this isn't traditional, or this isn't." You know, what works for one person doesn't always work for the next person,
True.
and there are many paths to healing, and so um, that's just one thing people have to keep in mind, that there's many paths to healing,
Absolutely.
and so what works for
Definitely.
one person doesn't always work for the next, and so
Indeed. Indeed. I'm just so grateful that there's people out there like you doing this, people who have lived it that are helping others. And so thanks for kind of teaching us about this a little bit better. I feel like it's kind of a holistic conversation when we're talking about the parts of addiction, we're talking about the sweat lodge, we're talking about the recovery group. But when you put it all together, it truly is kind of a one place for all those things, whether you're dealing with addiction or you're dealing with a loss of a family member, or just, pain of any sort, or trauma passed down in your family. This really is an opportunity to help work through those things, whether it's the sweat lodge or getting to know the people in the sweat lodge that can become a support for you. So understanding this a little bit better has
and
definitely
some of them
helped.
become lifelong friends. I mean,
Yeah, right.
I consider a lot of them who are still friends to this day.
Yeah.
We try to help each other.
That's awesome.
We can.
I know I'm Facebook friends with a lot of the folks now that we're in the sweat lodge with when I was at your house. So, and something we didn't talk about is after it's over, Sharon, at least in this case, Sharon had prepared this huge, amazing meal with cornbread and there's some kind of stew. I can't remember what it was,
It
but
was squash and
yes. And I think it was fall when I was there when we did that. I can't quite remember when it was, but it was just awesome to get out of there. And then also, once we were done and get out of there and go eat, because we were all starving and we were thirsty and we all get to just hang out together. It wasn't like sweat lodge is over, everybody go home. It was, now let's fulfill ourselves. Let's have more, um, a chance to talk to each other. It was just a really awesome experience. So
well, you're supposed to leave people better than when they came. So
yeah,
that's what we try to do. Get
definitely.
fed spiritually, and you get fed physically. So
Amen to that. When I left, broken is not the word. I'm trying to think of what the word is that I was feeling as I left. I got in the car and it was just like this humbled wow feeling, just kind of a very humbled by the experience, I guess is the word for it. And it was with me for days. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I thank you for that opportunity. Before we go, are there any words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners?
um, sure. There's a thing that I like to tell our clients. You can't change your past, but you can change the path you're on.
Mm, I love that. There is hope, everyone. There is hope and there's support. So,
If I can make it through what I've been through, uh,
darn
growing
right.
up in the ghetto of Tulsa, um, growing up in a not so nice foster home, going to prison, uh, overcoming alcohol and meth, uh, there's hope for everyone. And one of the things I like to tell, what I like to tell the clients at a recovery center is take a post-it note. When I was getting sober, take a post-it note and stick it where you can see it on your mirror, where you brush your teeth, where you comb your hair, and
Yeah.
put top three things. Put number one, God. Put number two, the sobriety, and put number three. Well, that's up to you. Whatever your third one is. Like when I was getting sober, I put go on vacation, and
Cool.
so But number one's God, number two, sobriety, and number three is whatever your heart desires. And so when I was getting sober, I had to see that every day. I had to remind myself every day of this.
Hmm.
And I seen it come to life, and I seen it come to fruition. And I went on vacation, and I stayed sober, and I put
Wow.
God first in my life, and those things. And I wouldn't be here today where I'm at if I didn't do it. And so I like to share that with our clients.
Absolutely.
Something about writing something down and looking at it every day.
I love that. And that can apply to all of us in some way. Just those,
Yes,
it's simple. Those three things, how are you going to rank them? Don't forget to get to number three.
right, right.
Well, thank you again for your time. Yakoki, my friend, stay well, stay strong with, I know you've got the burden of, not in a bad way, but a burden of all these other lives that you're helping right now. So don't forget to also do those sweats for yourself as well. And stay strong. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It's my pleasure. And you have a good day.
All right, Yakoki.
Know me.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search for Native Chalk Talk. That's Native, CHOCTALK. And check us out at nativechoctalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.